Hello everyone, this is Fiona Apollo and I do art commentary. Today I wanted to talk about a really worrying development in the world of Webtoon. A survey on the health conditions of Webtoon and manhwa artists in South Korea was recently released by the Korean Occupational Safety and Health Agency, which contains some extremely concerning statistics. I think we're all well aware by now that Webtoon artists put in a lot of time and effort well above their means for often subpar compensation. I released a video some time ago talking about Webtoon Canvas and how the existence of these harsh expectations also bleeds into the expectations put upon hobbyists creating their works for free. Even if a lot of artists we know of aren't from Korea, a lot of the top webcomic platforms like Tapas and Webtoon are owned by Korean companies, and as such, typically adhere to a lot of Korean working practices. I've been considering talking about this topic in the context of paid webcomic creators ever since the release of my previous video, but the thing that makes it tricky this time around is that if these employed artists were to be found out talking ill about their job or the people they work for, despite the fact that labour unions exist for comic artists in Korea and that there are supposedly some protections in place elsewhere in the world, they can still risk a lot by doing this, sometimes to the point of losing their income. Life isn't fair, and employers can be cruel. I didn't want to risk putting anyone in that position, and also this video was made on a bit of a time crunch since the survey was released on the 5th of January. So with those points, I'm sorry to say that unlike last time, I chose not to ask around for individual creators' own opinions on the subject. The way I see it, with this being a survey carried out by an official body, this should be sufficient enough data to back up the points I want to discuss today, but I am open to anyone sharing their own thoughts and opinions on the subject. This is a really big thing. I read a ton of webcomics and I have a bunch of real-life friends who do so too. I follow a lot of webcomic artists on social media. I'm on friendly terms with a good few of them. All of them are incredibly hardworking and kind people for the most part. This is something that affects many more individuals than we might think, not just in Korea. So let's talk about this survey and the current working conditions in the world of webcomics. We'll also be talking about some particularly heinous cases that have been brought up in connection to this wider issue, most notably the death of Yang Sung-rak, or Dubu, who worked on the series Solo Leveling, and the frankly horrendous mistreatment of the artist Yorupi, who worked on Roxana. If you like this video, please make sure to like, comment and subscribe, it helps me out, but this is also definitely something that needs to be spoken about. Employers and big corporations can't keep abusing people like this. At some point, something's gotta give. Please note that there will be mentions of some potentially triggering topics such as suicide, miscarriage and death, so proceed with caution. I'm really sorry, this isn't a very happy video, but I don't feel like I can just ignore what's being said. So let's do this. Part 1. The survey. So first things first, let's go over the survey findings we have available and see what we're working with. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the actual survey itself, but the findings are documented and commented on in an article written by reporter Yu Song-hee. The Twitter user Manhwabang also got the information circulating online and put together a thread with all the research and statistics in one place. All of my resources and any webtoons I mention will be linked in the description. A research team conducted an online survey targeting 320 full-time webtoon writers with an income of 500,000 won or more, which is around $400 over the past year of 2022. In-depth interviews were also conducted with 15 webtoon writers belonging to the Webtoon Writers Labour Union and the Korea Cartoonist Association. This is the first time that webtoon writers' mental and physical health conditions have been surveyed. So in the article, we already get a glimpse at the statements being shared by one of the writers. After 3 or 4 years since I started serialization, I felt like I was slowly going crazy. There is not a single writer around me who does not have depression. There are a few people who don't go to hospital and endure. In the survey, it states that 28.7% of webtoon writers have depression, compared to the national average of 7.7 as noted by the 2021 Mental Health Survey announced by the Ministry of Health and Welfare in December 2021. That's already 3 times the national average, and while we can ascertain that maybe these statistics may not be fully accurate, given that South Korea and many other Asian countries have a bit more of a stigma around mental health, it's still very telling that that percentage is still so high, because what that can also mean is that these people aren't able to hide it anymore like you would normally, given the importance of social acceptance within that part of the world. 28.2% experienced insomnia. According to the research team, rates of depression, anxiety, and sleep disorders also increased when there was an increased number of criticism via comments. It's no revelation to say that comments can make or break a person's confidence in a lot of ways online. With how many webtoons are out there, the risk of receiving negative comments if you are not seen to be in the top percentile of popularity can have a lot more impact on a person's mental health. Having 500 comments criticizing your comic when you only have like 500 subs will weigh you down a lot more than if you had the same amount of subs as, say, Lore Olympus, for example. The research team also found that while the platform for distributing content, which I'm assuming means platforms like Tapas and Line Webtoon, has grown immensely, the working environment of Webtoon writers has deteriorated. According to the team, occupying a good seat to be chosen by readers, which again I'm assuming equates to a Webtoon getting a feature or appearing on the front page, is directly related to the work's success, which is causing writers to increase the number of cuts, or panels is what I think they're referring to. Speaking of cuts, right at the beginning of the article, a quote from a Webtoon writer states that, unless you are full of talent or have a simple drawing 60 to 70 cuts in a week itself is only possible if you change yourself. This is all translated, so I'm making a guess at what they mean, but in terms of the cuts, I actually went and randomly picked a series from Webtoon's front page and counted all the panels from the latest episode. For anyone curious, the one I landed on was episode 106 of Like Wind on a Dry Branch, and just take a guess at how many panels were in that episode. Go on. I'll give you a second. Okay, major guesses? 75. 75 fully illustrated panels in one episode. And this particular Webtoon uploads every week. That is ridiculous. Say what you want about it being impressive, say what you want about the art style, the assets, whatever. And we also can't exactly prove that the people working on this particular Webtoon are experiencing the conditions we're talking about, but having 60 to 70 panels as a standard benchmark is nothing short of insanity. Now, this is the really upsetting part. 17.3% admitted to having suicidal thoughts, 8.5% planned it out, and 4% attempted it, compared to the national averages being 10.7%, 2.5%, and 1.7% respectively. If you need any further proof that these conditions are directly or indirectly killing people, here it is. There are a lot of other factors that can go into what triggers these kinds of thoughts and decisions, for example, having a bad home life or pre-existing mental or physical health issues, and even age can play a part. Something I want to touch on is that a lot of Webtoon artists are quite young when they start their comics, and while these conditions will obviously impact anyone in a big way, no matter what age they are, this kind of intense pressure can mess with younger people even more, and it can be prevalent for pretty much the rest of their lives. A picture shown in this article actually displays the studio of a Webtoon artist who debuted in 2013 at 17 years old. There is also an increased risk of musculoskeletal disorders, cystitis, gastrointestinal issues, and eye diseases. Pretty much all of these are caused by the nature of the work, which involves a very significant amount of time sitting down and looking at bright screens. If you are sitting down for extended periods of time, you need to make sure that you take a break every 2-ish hours. I know that everyone likes to hound on that fact and doesn't really explain why, but this is why. Your muscles will deteriorate, your skeleton will start to malform if you don't have a good chair and have your screen raised high enough to be eye level, and your retinas will literally burn over time due to the screen brightness, causing you to need glasses or go blind much earlier in life than you might be supposed to. Take a break of at least 10 minutes. Get up off the chair, do some stretches, drink some water, take a nap, go for a walk, whatever you need to do. Take it from someone who works a 9-to-5 office job and does YouTube, it's not good for you. The workdays are also noted to be excessively grueling. Webtoon writers work an average of 9.9 hours per day, and the day before the deadline soared to 11.8 hours. The number of working days per week was 5.7 days, and the average working hours per week was 51 hours. At 64.4%, more than half the respondents answered that the working hours are not appropriate. 1 in 3 said that they were exhausted mentally as well as physically. These Webtoon creators are literally being made to work 11 hours more than the average office worker. This intensity was also attributed to pressure from the platform and production company, and the large number of cuts per episode followed by a short serial week, which I believe is a short bonus page, intended to give the creators a break, but they're still drawing, so they're not really getting a break. Finally, income was also said to be very, very unstable. Most people taking the survey had an average of 4.15 years of experience, and 22.5% said their monthly minimum income was less than 500,000 won, which for reference again is about $398.76 US. 51.5% of respondents said their monthly maximum income was between 2 million and 4 million won, and 40.9% answered that their monthly income was between 500,000 and 1 million won. For working 51 hours a week, Webtoon writers on average are making a maximum of $3,190.10. That might sound pretty good to some, but please note that it is very rare that they will actually reach that number, and the fact that the rate of income is so wide is a true testament of how unstable it is. So that's pretty much everything that was included within the survey, and all I can really say is, as upsetting and frustrating and how angry it makes me, I honestly can't say that I'm surprised by these statistics. The first time ever that a Webtoon profession is surveyed in this way and the results being so bleak is frankly heartbreaking. It really speaks volumes to how it may not be apparent to many people just how grueling this work really is. People like to think that a career of drawing pictures is super fun and stress-free. It can be fun, it can be really fun, but it's very far from stress-free. It's a labour-intensive industry, and in a world where artwork is becoming increasingly devalued by the day, thanks to things like mass production and AI, it's only getting worse. These conditions and problems don't stop there either, and they make for some very shocking situations and circumstances. So let's move on to talking about the situations that are brought on by these conditions. Part 2. Solo leveling and Roxana. Here are two prominent examples of just how bad a person's circumstance can get when things like bad working conditions and a disregard for an employee's health, regardless of what the profession is, can become. Let's first talk about Yang Sung-rak, known by his pen name Dubu, who passed away at age 37 on the 23rd of July 2022. I'm going to refer to him mostly as Dubu because I don't want to disrespect the dead by butchering his name throughout this whole thing. Dubu was an illustrator for a very popular manhwa called Solo Leveling, and his drawings were what helped the comic achieve much of its fame and recognition. It's often cited as one of the works that gave rise to Webtoon popularity in Japan. The cause of death was due to a brain hemorrhage brought on by complications from an existing chronic illness, and it's pretty collectively agreed on that the excessive working conditions of the Webtoon only made this worse. In an article discussing Dubu's passing, it states that he did take multiple hiatuses to recuperate, first in August 2019 for 4 weeks, then in March 2020, November 2020, and then in June 2021. 2021 was the year when fans were really starting to become seriously concerned with Dubu's health due to the amount of hiatuses taking place. His final hiatus occurred in September 2021, which would be the last one before his death. With regards to Dubu's illness, while this obviously doesn't apply to every artist out there, there is a significant number of artists with chronic or debilitating conditions who go into the profession because these health conditions prevent them from taking on other forms of work. It's not uncommon for workplaces to be very inflexible with their work hours and do very little to accommodate people with additional needs, even to the point where these people are often very heavily discriminated against on that basis during the interviewing process. With professions like Webtoon, it's very common to be able to work in the comfort of your own home, which is an appealing factor for people with chronic illnesses, and it's the reason many go into it. But with the kind of working conditions that have been unearthed, even working from home is becoming just as much, if not more stressful than working in a studio, and higher-ups will even go as far as to pile on more pressure as they know that the person can't afford to leave because there are only certain types of jobs they're able to do. People with chronic illnesses like Dubu need to take more breaks than what people with better health do. That's just a given fact. But because Webtoon as a medium is becoming such a juggernaut, more and more expectations are being placed on the workers to deliver, and even for a perfectly healthy person, this kind of workload is unrealistic and often frankly impossible. What happened to Dubu is a tragedy, and while I'm glad to see that many people, including the companies who worked with him or released his works, paid respects to him after his passing, I wish they would do that in a more tangible way, such as putting in some kind of cap on the amount of work that manhwa artists and writers are expected to do for every episode. These sky-high expectations are quite literally killing people, and it's often the most vulnerable who fall victim first. The other incident involves an artist who worked on the webtoon Roxana called Yorumpi. Yorumpi released a long Twitter thread on the 29th of August 2022 explaining exactly what she had been going through. The tweet thread, however, is in Korean, so I'm using a video by Yiman as reference, as they also went over the situation and even translated Yorumpi's tweets. I'm also basing my pronunciation on how they say it, so I'm hoping I'm saying it right. Yorumpi was overworked and was only sleeping around 2 hours a day, experienced hearing loss, nerve disorders in both hands, central nerve disorder in the right, peripheral in the left, insomnia, panic disorder, depression, nausea, and social anxiety that prevented her from leaving her home. After trying to explain this to the producer of Roxana and requesting some time to rest and recover from it all, she was denied that right. This producer went on to abuse her position and force Yorumpi to continue working, eventually causing her to have a miscarriage due to the abnormal uterine bleeding. Even as this was happening, she was made to work as she was bleeding out. This same producer, by the way, also decided to go on maternity leave as she was also pregnant, and then decided to rub salt in the wound by sharing photos of her newborn on a Kakao group chat to everyone except Yorumpi, but included her husband. Yorumpi did ask the public not to witch hunt this producer, which is very admirable of her, but you can only imagine the heartbreak and rage that she is feeling, and it's entirely justified. She lost a child. What the producer did was monstrous, and it's a prime example of people in positions of power abusing their authority over people they work with to a horrendous degree. Yorumpi deserved better, and she is currently on a long-term hiatus to recover from everything. This incident caught the attention of the hosting site Kakao Page's leadership team, who sought to discuss the incident and examine the work environment regarding their creators to prevent this in future. Unfortunately, this is something I've heard whispers of in the past in places like Korea and Japan, where workplace abuse is a lot more common and is likely something that contributes to the survey statistics that we went over regarding working hours and rates of depression. It's a very upsetting reality for many people, not just in Korea. Oftentimes it falls under the radar so frequently because abusers are very good at hiding their intentions and manipulating the people around them. Even if your boss seems outwardly pleasant, which we have no evidence to suggest this producer wasn't. She likely may have framed it in a way that also made it seem like she was concerned about the tight deadlines and just wanted to get things finished, but the actions taken speak for themselves. Even if that were to be the case and she was actually oblivious to the abuse and torment she was causing, that still doesn't excuse what happened. She caused someone an immense amount of torment. Both of these stories stand to show us what can happen if these issues continue to go unchecked. If something doesn't change soon, then more people will end up turning into these cautionary tales. With all of that said, is there actually anything that we can do about this? Part 3. Can anything be done? Both of these incidents and the survey represent different ways in which the poor working conditions currently can manifest and impact people, especially those who are more vulnerable. Hopefully with such a scathing survey and accompanying stories, this will spur some kind of discussion about the current working model of webcomic creation and help to incite some form of change that benefits the creator's quality of life. I personally think that Dubu and Yorimpi would have likely benefited massively from higher-ups stepping in and introducing a cap on the amount of work that they actually did, as well as checking in with them and listening to any concerns, especially in regards to co-workers. Obviously, I know this is wishful thinking, but still, as it stands, I think 60 to 70 panels or more is far too much for a weekly schedule. Even cutting that down to about 40 to 50 would be more manageable, but still towing the line in my opinion. Having a cap like this would likely not make a massive impact on the company's profit because of, how many webtoons are on the platform. But also, another major thing that is becoming a problem lately with Webtoon is reader fatigue. Readers have too much choice, and for new readers just getting into the medium, 100 plus chapters of 70 panels can be very intimidating. Capping the panels would not only benefit the creators, but the readers would also have less to catch up on. And even for those die-hard readers, having less to read can allow them more time to really soak up the story and even seek out other great comics rather than sticking to the same ones all the time while they wait for the next update. I also think there needs to be more consideration for creators with chronic health conditions. This current model of 50 hours a week isn't good for a healthy person, let alone someone with additional needs. Obviously, we all know that if capitalism can get away with not doing any of this, they will, and have, and are doing. But with the backing of this kind of data at people's disposal, I'm sincerely hoping Webtoon workers can come together and either work with unions or others to devise a solution. I don't know if it's just me being radicalized by all the strikes happening in my country right now, but I can't help but wonder what all of these major platforms would do if people came together and just stopped making content. Obviously, that's not a viable solution. A lot of people will just get fired, and labour unions need to follow legal agreements between themselves and the government. And also the fact that Korea has a very different attitude towards work and having respect for higher authorities. But I have to wonder just how far people can be pushed until something snaps. A group of Webtoon original creators here in the West have already issued an open letter about how they are unhappy with the lack of transparency and utility on the Line Webtoon platform. I mean, we could all just move to Global Comics too, a platform that actually seems to give a damn about its creators, but hey, I don't really work on mine anymore, so what do I know? But yeah, is there anything that we as viewers can ultimately do? Quite honestly, I don't know. It's easy to sit here and talk about giving support to creators and show how much you love certain comics by interacting with them, but just that isn't really going to solve the root problem. The root problem is companies, or rather people in charge of these companies, only caring about lining their pockets and not about the craft. That's a bit of a huge demon to tackle. For now, I don't know, supporting creators externally may be the best thing to do if you can. But something I do just want to say before we cap this off is if you are someone who creates comics or stories or take part in any kind of creative endeavour and you are reading all of the doom and gloom that's going around, please do not let this video make you believe that going into a creative career only brings suffering. We are living in very trying times right now, and it takes a special kind of person to push on and carry on creating even when everything seems against you. The only thing you can really do is your best, and trust me, you're doing great. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. What do you think about the survey? What do you think about the incidents involving Dubu and Yorimpi? Are you a Webtoon creator who has also experienced some of these harsh conditions? Please leave your thoughts below. I wish there was more I could do besides just screaming about this from halfway across the world, but people being respected in the workplace, especially in creative roles, is just something I feel very strongly about. I don't want to see people I like and respect treated like they're disposable. They deserve a good work-life balance and time to enjoy healthy and happy lives, and that's what this is all really about. Stay safe everyone, and I will speak to you soon, hopefully with a happier video. Bye!